is the 5th lesson in the Nandai series. Nandai, which is challenge, and Go, number 5. So what we're going to talk about, first let's talk about the structure of this Nandai course and what's the purpose of us doing all of this. Throughout the year, you're going to have 52 lessons. They're going to focus on different aspects of Budo, which are warrior ways. And some of them will be heavily Japanese influenced, but some of them will be Korean influence or kickboxing influence or even military influence, which are all based upon my personal background as your instructor. At the end of the Nandai course, you can contact me. My contact information via email is on the Dane Harden YouTube site, which is Dane Harden Martial Arts. If you click on the details, you'll find my email address in there. And at the end of the year, you can send me an email that you're interested in taking the completion test, which will be about 150 questions that will go over all the details of the things that we covered this year. So Nandai Go, which is the first lesson of February, is going to be a review of the lessons that we covered in January. This course, completion and taking the test at the end of the course and finishing this Nandai certification is a requirement for you guys. You're going to need to do this in order to be able to test to the Yandan level. So this is a Western Masters requirement within my system. For the 1,340 or so subscribers that we now have, if you're interested in doing the Nandai, there's my email address that you can find under the Dane Harden Martial Arts on YouTube. It's in the details. You can send me an email that you also are interested in doing this Nandai certificate completion, which is a test. It's about 150 to 200 question test that you'll take at the end of the year. You're welcome to use the videos as a reference. All the answers to all the questions are contained within this video series of 52 individual videos. So it is going to require that you actually study the material. There will be a small fee, but that fee will just cover the shipping and then also cover the cost of producing the diploma. Nandai Go, which is lesson 5. The first lesson of each month from this point forward is going to be a review of the material that was presented in that previous month. The first question comes from Nandai-san, which was lesson 3. Be able to explain the difference between kokyu ho versus miso ho. Question number 2, I want you to be able to define misogi for me. Define the term misogi. Question 3, which comes from Nandai Yan, which was lesson 4. We refer to Yan and or Shi. Each ni, song, Shi is 4, and Yan is also 4. Yan is an older term for 4, and we don't use the term Shi because Shi in Japanese can also have an association with death. Kind of like you don't go to the 13th floor, you go to the 14th or the 12th floor. So this next term is from Nandai Yan, and it's kotodama. There's 2 spellings. There's kotodama, D-A-M-A, or kototama, T-A-M-A. Explain to me what that is. What is NIF, or negative inspiratory force? We mentioned this when we were talking about the breath lessons, and we specifically brought it up when we were doing the Sanshin Kata, which was a breath exercise hyung or kata pattern, where we're learning how to control and improve the musculature within the diaphragm and the accessory muscles. What is negative inspiratory force, and how does that actually functionally work to improve oxygenation? The next question, bells and their frequency responses. What is the natural frequency response range that most bells that are used within Buddhist temples vibrate at? Why are arm movements in Seiza when you're doing Kokyu-ho necessary? Next, explain what are extension drills. All of those come from Nandai-san, lesson 3. So what is an adrenaline-based response? Explain what happens in an adrenaline-based response. Explain what can happen to your coordination in an adrenaline-based response. And explain how you can counter the effects of that adrenaline-based response. So that's kind of a big question. It could take a couple of paragraphs really to answer that question. And what I'm looking for is that you specifically understand what an adrenaline-based response is. Don't just go somewhere and cut and paste and then slap that on a thing and send it to me at the email that's on the site. What I want this to be is in your own words. Try to explain to me what you think happens and use some of the scientific data that explains what it is as a physiologic response. What is this idea of breath linkage when we're talking about kokyu-ho and then linkage to breath? On one of the videos, it was Nandai Go, which was the second one. We talked about extension and this idea of projection, the idea of water coming out of your fingertip, and why that extension and breath sort of help to unify the body. What is kopai? You heard me mention this term in lesson 1, lesson 2, and lesson 3. So explain to me what kopai is. What is pancreation? Next lesson came from stances, which was Nandai Go, lesson 2. Explain to me the difference between an orthodox stance and a southpaw stance. Also, in talking about stances, there's a reference to the 12 bridges. What is that 12 bridges reference to? What is the style that it came from? And why are so many classical Eastern martial arts based off of that style and or system of stances and postures? What is blading? Also from lesson number 2, Nandai Go. What does the idea of heiko mean? H-E-I-K-O. Explain that concept of heiko. Next, there's a term, a saying, ichi, jiga, banji. This comes straight from the Kenshu Studies course that I took with Hanshi Block in Canada. Ichi, jiga, banji. Explain to me what that means. Give me the interpretation in Japanese. And if you could, give me a couple of maybe examples or references or how that may relate to your life. What are the steps in box breathing? We talked about an adrenaline-based response. We talked about the connection of breath. Box breathing, Ranger breathing, Navy SEAL breathing. There's a very specific way to do it. And I want you to explain it to me as if I were a white belt, okay? And I'm trying to understand the concepts of 4-measure breathing or box breathing. The difference between shisei and taisei. These concepts come from Budo, which is Japanese archery, and they relate to your lesson on stances, which was Nandai Go. The next question, name the 4 classical postures. 2 of them are weight-based, 2 of them are animal-based. What are the differences between stances in blade-based arts, like as an example, Aikido, versus kickboxing-based arts? Are there similarities between the 2? Explain to me what those similarities are. Why do the Japanese hold weapons with the blade edge up? Guys, that's it. That's the review for you guys on lessons 1, 2, 3, 4. So this was Nandai Go, which is lesson 5, which is a review of everything that we covered so far in January. And I assure you, we didn't cover it all, but we're asking you some pretty detailed questions. And those questions you're going to see surface again at the end of the year in December. If you're still with us on the Nandai Challenge series, and I hope you are, because we're challenging you to learn some martial arts at a wider and deeper level so that it'll improve your martial systems, martial styles, martial skills, irregardless of what your system is. If you're my friends from the Kempo world, I hope maybe this adds to some of your skills. If you're in kickboxing or Aikido, you should certainly be able to see some of the carryover with that if you're one of my JLFS friends from the Joe Louis Fighting Systems, or you're with our Aikido program at the Yamashinkan in Abingdon. Guys, this is Dane Harden with Dane Harden Martial Arts on YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week where we're going to be on Nandai number 6.